India's share of the world economy when Britain arrived on its shores was 23%. By the time the British left, it was down to below 2%. Why? Simply because the India had been governed for the benefit of Britain. And Britain's rise for 200 years was financed by its depredations in India. India went from being a world-famous exporter of finished cloth into an importer, went from having 27% of world trade to less than 2%. Meanwhile, colonists like Robert Clive bought the rotten barote in England with the proceeds of their loot in India, while taking the Hindi word loot with them into their dictionaries as well as their habits. And the British had the goal to call him the Clive of India, as if he belonged to the country, but what all he really did was to ensure that much of the country belonged to him. Staying with India, between 15 and 29 million Indians died of starvation, British-induced famines. The most famous example, of course, was the Great Bengal famine during Second World War, when 4 million people died because Winston Churchill deliberately, as a matter of militant policy, proceeded to divert essential supplies from civilians in Bengal to sturdy Tamils and Europeans as reserve stockpiles. He said that the starvation of any vendor-fed Bengalis mattered much less than of sturdy Greeks, Churchill's actual quote. And when conscience-stricken British officials wrote to him that the people were dying because of this disease, he peevishly wrote to the margins of the file, "Why hasn't Gandhi died yet?" And no wonder that the sun never sets in the British Empire, because even the God couldn't twist the English in the dark. Let me just point out, British aid to India is about 0.4% of India's GDP. The government of India actually spends more on fertilizer subsidies, which might be an appropriate metaphor for that argument.